when I heard the concept for Spider-Man Life Story, I knew it was something that I really wanted to read, because this is something that not just me, but I'm sure many of you have wondered about. What would happen if a story of a superhero was told in real time? And by that I mean from the time that their comic debuted up until modern time. And that's what Spider-Man Life Story is doing. This is by Chip Zdarsky, art is by Mark Bagley. And I'm not familiar with Chip Zdarsky's work. Well, I am now because I read this. But prior to this, I had no kind of exposure to Chip Zdarsky's work. I hadn't read any. I'm pretty sure I hadn't read anything of his prior to this. Now, I did hear he did work on, I think it was Spectacular Spider-Man last year, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me. Of course, I'm sure I'll be corrected in the comment section below if that's wrong. And I know he's also working on Daredevil right now, but this is really good. I really enjoyed this, and what I like about it is so it takes place in the 60s, and it starts off 4 years, 1966, after Spider-Man first got his powers, and by 1966 he's, no pun intended here, he's in the full swing of things, is really kind of grown into his role as Spider-Man. He kind of has it down to a science at this point. He still has the same problems he's always had, not a lot of money, having to take care of Aunt May, who's always having health problems, but doing the best he can. Doing the best he can with all the things he's multitasking in. Now, what's interesting in this, and what I really like or I can see the direction that Chip Zdarsky is going with this, is how he's paralleling real-time things that happened in that era, in the real world, which I hope is something that continues on, not just in this first issue. Seeing how Peter Parker is reacting to those things, along with the milestone things that happened in Spider-Man. So, for example, 1966, of course, start of the Vietnamese War, start of Vietnam, I believe, and he's really kind of struggling on top of all the other problems he's having. He's kind of struggling with whether or not he should go to Vietnam because of his whole mantra, with great power comes great responsibility, and the good that he could do if he goes over there. And maybe because of what he believes, there's a greater purpose for him, and maybe that's where he should be as well. We also see this first meeting with Norman Osborn occur. We see his growing affection for Gwen Stacy, which is, this is all timely stuff. This is all stuff that happened in these eras, getting closer to Gwen, getting to know her better. His feelings are growing for her. And really, like I said, also in the back of his mind, just thinking about whether or not he has a greater sense, a greater duty that he has, should he go overseas. And that's something that's weighing on him in the back of his mind. So I find that to be very interesting, on top of the fact that he also finds out that Norman Osborn knows his true identity. So something else that happened there. So there's all these conflicts that are happening, on top of the fact that, again, it's stuff that happened in that era, that happened in that decade. So really, really great writing by Chip Zdarsky in this. I really enjoyed this book a lot. And the other thing that I want to talk about real quick here is this. When he finally gets a chance to talk to Captain America, and really he's just like, hey, Cap, what should I do? And Cap does what Cap does. Cap's like, hey, look, what you're doing here in New York, fighting this crime, you're already sacrificing your life as it is in what you're doing. He kind of reassures him that his role of where he's at right now in New York, doing what he's doing, what Spider-Man is doing, is important. And already that's something that he doesn't say it as kind of like a consolation thing, like, oh, they're there, consolation prize or, participation medal, nothing like that. It's like, hey, listen, what you're doing over here is just as equally important. And I'm going to go across seas, but that's something that I have to do. You don't have to do that. You already have a lot going on here, and what you're doing here is important, and kind of reassures him a little bit, like more or less like, hey, you should stay here. He doesn't say it directly, but kind of like, but he also kind of leaves it to him like, it's a decision you have to make for yourself, but kind of reassures him that nothing that he's doing, that just, if he doesn't go to Vietnam, it doesn't mean that he's making the wrong choice or that he's making a bad choice. Either choice that he makes is the right choice, more or less, in a sense. Like, you what you're doing is important, though, but he's kind of more or less, in a way, just letting him know, like, look, if you stay here, it's fine. It's all good. You're not doing anything wrong if you stay. So I really enjoyed this a lot. This is something that I'm really looking forward to seeing where Chip Zdarsky is going with this. And like I said, hopefully it's not a thing where they're only talking about just stuff that's happening with Spider-Man. That doesn't seem to be the case, just from how the tone is set in this book, with the fact that they included the Vietnam War in this, in the 70s. I'm sure there'll be other things that are happening that are real life events that happen here in the real world, that are paralleled with the milestone or seminal events of that decade for Spider-Man. But the cool thing about it is that he's going to be aging throughout this process. It's not just going to be young, nice Peter Parker there. It's going to be Spider-Man over time and dealing with these things. So that's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to with this series. And man, it's really good. I just cannot say that enough. For anyone that has not read this, if you're a Spider-Man fan, I think this is must-read stuff right here. I think it's phenomenal so far. If this first issue is any indication of where the series is going and how it's going to go, man, I am all in. I am all in. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know if there's any recommendations you have for me to read or review. And until next time, you all know how it goes. The hunt continues.